The call Emily Carter knew something was wrong when the bridal suite door clicked shut behind Tyler Grant. Music drifted through the walls of the coastal mansion. A string quartet played beneath crystal chandeliers. Hundreds of white roses covered the grand hall downstairs. Beyond the tall windows, rain moved across Lake Michigan like a dark curtain. Her younger sister was minutes away from walking down the aisle. Emily should have been checking the flowers. She should have been calming her mother, finding the missing pearl earrings, or helping Sophie breathe through her nervous laughter. Instead, Tyler stood between Emily and the locked door. His charming smile was gone. He held a folder in one hand and a silver pen in the other. "Sign it, Emily." Her fingers tightened around the bouquet she had been carrying. "Not today, especially today." Tyler moved closer. His expensive suit looked perfect. His dark hair was carefully arranged. To everyone downstairs, he was the patient man who had loved Emily through the difficult years after her father died. Only Emily knew how cold his eyes became when nobody was watching. He placed the folder on the dressing table. "You have delayed this long enough." The papers would transfer her half of the Carter lakefront estate into a company controlled by Tyler. Emily had discovered that detail 3 nights earlier. She had not slept since. "My father left that property to Sophie and me. Your father left you a ruined greenhouse and 20 acres of debt. Then why do you want it so badly?" For 1 second, Tyler stopped smiling. That single second confirmed everything. Emily stepped backward. Tyler caught her wrist. Pain traveled through her arm. His voice remained quiet because the wedding guests were only 1 floor below them. "You will sign the papers. Then you will walk downstairs and smile. If you refuse, I will make sure everyone in that room believes you tried to destroy your sister's wedding because you were jealous. Let go of me. You have always been jealous of her." "That is not true. Beautiful Sophie. Perfect Sophie. The daughter everyone notices when she enters a room." Emily stared at him. Tyler had used those words before. He used them whenever he wanted to weaken her. He knew every insecurity she had carried since childhood. He knew which relatives compared the sisters. He knew which dresses Emily avoided. He knew how many years she had spent standing behind flower arrangements so nobody would look at her body. He had collected her fears carefully. Then he had turned them into weapons. "You are not going to control me anymore," she said. The warmth vanished from his expression. "Who is going to stop me?" Emily looked toward the window. Black rain struck the glass. Then she remembered a number she had promised never to call. Years earlier, a wounded young man had collapsed behind her flower shop during a winter storm. Emily had hidden him, stopped the bleeding, and refused to tell the police or the armed strangers who searched the street. The wounded man had been Matteo Moretti. His brother had arrived before dawn. Luca Moretti had entered her shop wearing a black coat wet with snow. He had carried the silent authority of a man who never needed to raise his voice. Everyone in Chicago knew his name. People whispered that Luca controlled the harbor, half the private security companies in the city, and businesses that never appeared on official records. He had offered Emily money. She had refused it. Before leaving, he had placed a card on the counter. There had been 1 number on it. No name. No address. Luca had looked at her with eyes colder than the winter outside. "If you are ever in danger, call this number." Emily had kept the card hidden inside her wallet for 4 years. Tyler tightened his grip. "You have 10 seconds. Emily lifted the heavy bouquet and struck his shoulder. Tyler released her in surprise. She ran. She pulled open the side door and escaped into a narrow service hallway. Her heels slipped on the polished floor as she hurried past carts of champagne and silver trays. Behind her, Tyler shouted her name. Emily entered a storage room and locked the door. Her hands shook as she searched her bag. The card was still there. She entered the number. It rang once. Then a deep voice answered. Emily. He knew who she was. She pressed one hand over her mouth as footsteps approached the storage room. "Luca," she whispered. Silence filled the line. Not an uncertain silence. A dangerous silence. "Tell me where you are." "My sister's wedding. The Vale estate near the lake." "Are you hurt?" Emily looked at the red mark forming around her wrist. Tyler struck the door. "Emily, open this door." Luca heard him. His voice became quieter. "Who is that Tyler Grant?" Another silence. This one felt different. It felt like a weapon being loaded. Emily closed her eyes. "Can you come get me?" Luca answered immediately. "I am already coming." The wedding, 12 minutes later. The wedding vows began. Emily had escaped the storage room through a second service entrance. She found Sophie inside the bridal chamber, surrounded by bridesmaids and relatives. Her sister looked radiant beneath a delicate veil. For one painful moment, Emily considered telling her everything. Then Daniel Grant entered the room. The groom was Tyler, younger brother. Daniel smiled warmly at Sophie and kissed her hand. Tyler appeared behind him. He had regained his calm expression. Only Emily saw the warning in his eyes. If she caused a scene without proof, the entire family would believe Tyler. He had spent months preparing them. He had told her mother that Emily was exhausted. He had told Sophie that Emily felt forgotten. He had told friends that Emily sometimes became confused under stress. Every lie had been small enough to sound like concern. Together, they had built a prison around her reputation. The doors to the grand hall opened. Sophie walked toward the altar. Emily followed with the other bridesmaids, carrying white roses she had grown in her own greenhouse. The room glowed with candlelight. Rain moved against the windows. Tyler stood in the front row beside their mother. He watched Emily as though nothing had happened. The minister began speaking. Emily tried to breathe. Luca had said he was coming. She did not know whether that meant 10 minutes or an hour. She did not know whether he would truly enter a wedding filled with politicians, business leaders, and private security. Then engines sounded outside. At first, they were distant. Then they grew louder. One engine became 5. 5 became 10. The minister stopped. Guests turned toward the windows. Black vehicles moved through the rain and surrounded the mansion. Men in dark suits stepped from them. The estate guards reached for their radios. Every radio stopped working at the same time. The doors opened. Luca Moretti entered the wedding hall. He wore a black suit beneath a long, rain-covered coat. Water shone across his shoulders. Behind him walked 6 men who carried no visible weapons, yet moved with the discipline of soldiers. The room became completely silent. Luca did not look at the bride. He did not look at the groom. He looked only at Emily. His gaze moved from her frightened face to the red mark around her wrist. Something changed in his expression. It lasted less than a second. Then it disappeared beneath perfect control. Luca walked down the aisle. Tyler stepped forward. "This is a private ceremony." Luca continued walking. Daniel moved away from the altar. Several guests lowered their eyes. They recognized Luca. More importantly, they understood what his arrival meant. He stopped in front of Emily. For 4 years, she had remembered him as powerful. She had forgotten how large his presence felt when he stood close. His eyes studied her face. "Did he hurt you?" Emily could feel everyone watching. "Luca, did he hurt you?" His voice remained calm. That calm frightened Tyler more than shouting would have. Emily looked toward her sister. Sophie appeared confused. Tyler seized the moment. Emily has been under severe emotional pressure. She misunderstood a private conversation. Luca removed his coat. He placed it around Emily's shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body. "Nobody touches her again," he said. Tyler laughed nervously. "You cannot enter my brother's wedding and threaten me." Luca finally looked at him. "This is not a threat. It is information." Daniel stepped beside Tyler. You need to leave. Luca glanced toward the groom. For the first time, surprise touched his expression. It vanished quickly. But Emily noticed. So did Tyler. Daniel reached inside his jacket. Luca bodyguards moved at once. The guests screamed. Sophie stood frozen at the altar. Daniel slowly raised both hands. Luca turned to Emily. We are leaving. I cannot leave Sophie. Your sister is coming with us. Sophie pulled away when one of the Moretti men approached. I am not going anywhere. Daniel placed an arm around her. This man is trying to destroy our wedding. Emily stepped toward her sister. Sophie, please listen to me. Tyler tried to force me to sign over the property. Tyler shook his head with carefully practiced sadness. She has been struggling for weeks. Emily stared at the people she loved. Some appeared worried for her. Others avoided her eyes. Luca noticed. He moved slightly closer until his shoulder touched hers. The simple contact steadied her. Show them your wrist, he said. Emily lowered the coat from one shoulder and raised her arm. A dark red mark circled her skin. Sophie's face changed. Tyler spoke quickly. I stopped her from falling. Luca looked toward one of his men. Marco. A tall man near the entrance touched an earpiece. A large screen above the dance floor turned on. Security footage appeared. The image showed Tyler dragging Emily into the bridal suite. Then the recording ended. Gasps moved through the hall. Tyler stared at Luca. How did you get that? Luca's expression remained unreadable. You should ask yourself why you believed I would arrive without knowing what waited inside. Daniel whispered something to Sophie. Then he pulled her toward a side door. Emily saw fear in her sister's face. Sophie, Daniel locked an arm around the bride. The Moretti men advanced. A gunshot struck the ceiling. Guests dropped behind tables. Daniel held a small pistol against Sophie's side. Tyler ran toward him. Nobody move. Daniel shouted. Luca stepped in front of Emily. His body became a shield between her and the weapon. The room filled with crying and shattered glass as guests fled toward the walls. Daniel dragged Sophie backward. Luca watched every movement. Let her go, he said. Or what? Luca did not answer. He did not need to. Daniel reached the side door. Before he could open it, a Moretti guard appeared behind him and struck the weapon from his hand. Sophie fell away. Emily ran to her. The sisters held each other on the floor beneath the candlelight. When Emily looked up again, Daniel and Tyler were gone. A side window stood open. Rain blew across the curtains. Luca stared at the empty opening. He did not look surprised. That frightened Emily more than anything else. The Moretti house. Luca took Emily, Sophie, and their mother to a Moretti residence outside Chicago. The house stood behind stone walls and iron gates. It was not the dark fortress Emily had imagined. The rooms were quiet and elegant, with old wood, pale marble, and paintings that appeared older than the city. Armed guards watched every entrance. Sophie refused to speak during the drive. Her wedding dress had been stained by rain and broken flowers. She sat beside Emily in the rear of the vehicle, staring at the ring on her hand. Their mother cried silently. Emily wanted to comfort them. She did not know how. Her call had brought Luca into the ceremony. His arrival had saved Sophie. It had also torn open a truth none of them understood. Luca waited in a private study while a doctor examined the sisters. Emily's wrist was bruised, but not broken. Sophie had no physical injuries. When the doctor left, Luca entered. He had removed his wet jacket and rolled his sleeves to his forearms. Emily saw an old scar near his wrist. He noticed her looking and lowered his sleeve. Where are Tyler and Daniel? Emily asked. Gone. That answer is not enough. It is the answer I have tonight. Sophie stood. My husband did not know what Tyler was doing. Luca turned toward her. Your husband pointed a gun at you. He was afraid. No. He was losing control. Sophie's face tightened. You do not know him. I know exactly who he is. Emily heard the certainty in Luca's voice. She stepped between them. Then tell us. Luca looked at her. Not yet. Anger replaced her fear. You came into the wedding with armed men. You surrounded the house. You took control of the security system. You knew Daniel would be there. Do not stand in front of us and say, not yet. A faint reaction touched his eyes. Nobody spoke to Luca that way. The guards near the door became still. Luca dismissed them with one glance. When they were alone, he walked toward the window. Tyler and Daniel Grant were not born with those names. He said, their real family controlled smuggling routes along the eastern coast. Their father was killed during a conflict with 3 criminal organizations. The brothers disappeared and rebuilt themselves through legitimate companies. Sophie shook her head. Daniel owns an investment firm. The investment firm moves money for people who cannot use banks. Emily thought of Tyler's questions about the lakefront property. Why did they come after us? Luca remained silent. Emily walked closer. Why? Because your father left something behind. Their mother suddenly looked up. No. Luca turned toward her. Mrs. Carter, you promised him. Emily stared at her mother. Promised who? Their mother covered her face. Luca spoke carefully. Your father worked with my family. The room seemed to move around Emily. My father repaired commercial buildings. That was one part of his life. Luca opened a drawer and removed an old photograph. He placed it on the desk. Emily recognized her father immediately. Thomas Carter stood beside a younger Luca near the Chicago harbor. Several men surrounded them. Behind the group, a warehouse burned beneath the night sky. Her father was not smiling. He held a file against his chest. Emily touched the edge of the photograph. What was he doing there? Protecting me. The truth entered the room slowly. It changed the meaning of every memory she had. The late phone calls. The locked cabinet in the basement. The days her father returned home with mud on his shoes, even though he claimed to be working in the city. Luca watched her reaction. Your father discovered that several families were planning to remove mine. He collected their financial records. Names. Payments. Judges. Police officers. Shipping companies. A ledger. Emily whispered. Luca's eyes narrowed. How do you know that word? Tyler said at once. He thought I was asleep. Sophie stepped closer. Where is it? Hidden somewhere on the lakefront estate. Their mother began crying again. Thomas wanted both daughters to own the land. He believed dividing the property would keep the evidence safe. Nobody could sell it without both signatures. Emily remembered the papers Tyler wanted her to sign. Daniel had planned to gain Sophie ownership through marriage. Tyler planned to take Emily half through fear. The wedding had never been about love. Sophie pulled the ring from her finger and threw it across the room. It struck the wall and fell beneath a chair. Emily moved toward her. But Sophie raised one hand. Do not. Her voice broke. You warned me about his brother. You never warned me about Daniel. I did not know. Sophie looked toward Luca. Did you know? Luca did not answer quickly enough. Emily felt cold. You knew they were targeting us. I knew they were searching for the ledger. Did you know about the wedding? Yes. Sophie stared at him. And you allowed it to happen. Luca's expression remained controlled. I placed men around the estate. You were never unprotected. Daniel held a gun against her. Emily said, for less than 5 seconds. It only takes 1 second to die. Luca met her eyes. I know. There was something inside those 2 words. Something old and painful. Emily wanted to understand it. She also wanted to strike him. You used the wedding, she said. I used their gathering. They assembled everyone connected to their organization in one place. My sister was bait. Luca's jaw tightened. She was not supposed to be in danger, but she was. Emily removed his coat from her shoulders. She placed it on the back of a chair. For the first time since the wedding, Luca looked unsettled. It was almost invisible. She saw it anyway. "You came because I called," she said. "Yes. Or did you come because your enemies were finally together, both?" The honest answer hurt more than a lie. Emily turned away. "I want to leave." "That is not possible." She looked back at him. "You do not own me." "No." His voice became quieter. "But until Tyler and Daniel are found, every person searching for that ledger believes you can lead them to it. I cannot. They will not believe you. Then tell your guards to take my family somewhere else." Luca stepped toward her. "You are safest here." Safe is not the same as free. For a moment, neither moved. The distance between them felt charged with anger, fear, and something Emily refused to name. Luca stopped before reaching her. His hand lifted slightly. His eyes moved toward the mark around her wrist. He almost touched it, then he lowered his hand. "You called me?" "Emily, because I believed your promise. I kept it." "No, you kept me alive." "There is a difference." The flower shop Emily remained at the Moretti house for 3 days. Luca did not force her to speak to him. He also did not leave. She saw him at breakfast, near the security room, and outside the library during long conversations with his men. He slept very little. Sometimes Emily woke before dawn and found him standing on the terrace, watching the gates through the fog. Sophie stayed in her room. Their mother spent hours praying in a small chapel near the eastern garden. Emily needed something normal. She asked to return to her flower shop. Luca refused. Emily asked again. He refused again. On the 4th morning, she entered his study carrying a small suitcase. "I am going to the shop." "No, my flowers will die." "Buy more." "That is not how living things work." Luca looked up from the documents on his desk. "Someone tried to enter your apartment last night." Emily stopped. "Who?" "The man escaped before my people reached him." "You placed people at my apartment." "I placed people around every location connected to you, without asking me." He leaned back in his chair. "Would you have agreed?" "No." "Then asking would have wasted time." Emily stared at him. "You are impossible." "That has been said before." "I am still going." Luca studied her for several seconds. "Then I am coming with you?" The drive into Chicago took 40 minutes. Rain had stopped, but the city remained gray beneath low clouds. Emily Flower Shop stood between a bakery and an old bookstore. The sign above the door read Carter Flowers. Her father had painted the letters himself. The sight of them tightened her chest. 2 Moretti guards entered first. Luca followed Emily inside. The shop smelled of damp soil, eucalyptus, and roses. Several arrangements had wilted near the front window. Emily placed her suitcase behind the counter and began working. Luca stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by flowers and silence. He looked as though he belonged in neither. That made Emily smile despite herself. "What? Nothing." "You smiled." "I did not." "You did." She cut the damaged stems from a group of white roses. Luca watched her hands. "You saved Matteo here. In the back room, you lied to 6 armed men. They asked whether I had seen anyone. You had seen him. They did not ask whether I had hidden him beneath a table." A faint shadow of amusement touched Luca's mouth. It disappeared before becoming a smile. Emily carried a vase toward the window. Luca moved to help. She gave him a surprised look. "I know how to carry glass," he said. "That is reassuring." He placed the vase on the display table. For several minutes, they worked without speaking. Luca removed dead flowers with the seriousness of a man studying enemy territory. Emily noticed he was careful with them. "You have done this before?" "My mother kept a garden." "What happened to her?" "She died when I was 19. Emily heard the wall return to his voice. She did not push. A vehicle stopped outside. Luca turned immediately. His hand moved beneath his jacket. The front door opened. A young delivery driver entered with a cardboard box. The guards checked him before allowing him closer. The driver stared at Luca and nearly dropped the package. Emily signed for it. Inside the box were dozens of printed photographs. Every photograph showed Emily. Emily opening the flower shop. Emily carrying groceries. Emily visiting her mother. Emily sitting alone at a cafe. Some had been taken months earlier. Others were several years old. Luca's face became completely still. Emily picked up one image. It showed her asleep beside the window of her apartment. The photograph had been taken from outside. Her stomach turned. Who did this? Luca took the photograph from her hand. Tyler might have begun the surveillance. These are too organized for one man. On the bottom of the box lay a note. Bring the sisters to the greenhouse. Luca crushed the paper in one hand. Emily looked through the photographs again. One image was different. It showed Luca sitting in a black car across the street from her shop. The date in the corner was nearly 3 years old. Emily raised it. Why were you here? Luca did not answer. She found another image. Luca stood beneath an umbrella while Emily locked the shop. Another showed his vehicle following her through the snow. The room felt smaller. You were watching me before Tyler entered my life. Protecting you. For 3 years. Since your father died. Emily stared at him. I never saw you. You were not supposed to. How many people have followed me? Enough. That is not an answer. Luca moved closer. Your father died because he protected me. I made certain his family remained safe. Safe. Emily held up the photograph of herself asleep. Does this look safe? No. For the first time, anger entered his voice. It looks like someone crossed a line that will not exist tomorrow. Emily lowered the picture. Why did you never tell me? Because you had a life. A struggling shop. Unpaid bills. And a man who controlled me. Before Tyler, his gaze held hers. Dawn. Before Tyler, you laughed every morning when the bakery owner brought you coffee. You sang when you worked alone. You gave flowers to children who could not pay. You spent Sundays with your mother. You had peace. The detail in his words unsettled her. You knew all of that. Yes. Why? Luca looked toward the rain-stained window. Your father asked me to protect you. That is not the whole truth. His eyes returned to hers. No. The air changed. Emily could hear her own breathing. Luca stood close enough for her to see the pale scar along his jaw. What is the rest? A vehicle exploded across the street. The front windows shattered. Luca reached Emily before the sound ended. He pulled her to the floor and covered her body with his. Glass fell around them. Smoke filled the street. The Moretti guards drew their weapons. Luca lifted his head. Are you hurt? I do not know. His hands moved over her arms and shoulders, searching for blood. Emily caught his wrist. I am not hurt. Gunfire struck the brick outside. Luca pushed her behind the counter. Stay down. He turned toward the door. Emily grabbed his sleeve. Do not leave me. The words escaped before she could stop them. Luca looked at her hand around his arm. Then he looked into her eyes. Something fierce and unguarded appeared in his face. I will not. He signaled to his men. They moved Emily through the back room and into an armored vehicle waiting in the alley. Luca entered beside her. Smoke rose behind them as the vehicle accelerated into the city. Emily sat pressed against the seat. Luca's hand remained around hers. Neither of them mentioned it. The safe house. The attack forced Luca to move the family again. This time, he took them to a hidden house near a fog-covered harbor. The building had once belonged to a shipping company. From the outside, it appeared abandoned. Inside, it contained secure rooms, reinforced windows, medical supplies, and underground tunnels leading toward the docks. Emily hated it immediately. There were no flowers, no family photographs, no signs that anyone had ever lived there. Sophie finally left her room that evening. She wore borrowed clothes and carried a tablet. "I found something," she said. The sisters joined Luca inside the security room. Sophie opened an old digital map of the lakefront estate. The greenhouse was built over another structure. Emily leaned closer. A basement, more like a service tunnel. It connects the greenhouse to the boathouse. Luca studied the map. "Your father may have used it to move documents without entering the main house." Emily looked at him. "How did Tyler know about the greenhouse?" "Your father trusted someone." "Who?" Luca, expression hardened. "My uncle, Victor Moretti." The room became silent. Luca continued. "Victor believed my father should never have led the family. After my father died, Victor tried to gain control. Thomas discovered that Victor was working with rival organizations. Your uncle arranged the assassination plot," Emily said. "Yes, and my father saved you." Luca moved toward the dark window. "We were leaving a warehouse near the harbor. Thomas noticed a vehicle that did not belong there. He pushed me behind a concrete wall before the shooting began." Emily could barely breathe. "What happened to him?" Luca did not turn around. "He was hit while drawing their attention away from me." She had always been told that her father died during a construction accident. Her mother had repeated the lie for years. Emily felt grief open inside her, as though the loss had happened that morning. "Was he alone?" "No." Luca's voice changed. "I was with him. His final words were about you and Sophie." Emily closed her eyes. "What did he say?" "He told me not to let his daughters pay for his choices." Luca turned. "I promised him." Anger and sorrow collided inside her. "You should have told us. Your mother believed silence would protect you, and you agreed." "At the time, yes." "Do you still believe that?" "No." The answer came without hesitation. Emily looked toward Sophie. Her sister wiped tears from her face. "Did Daniel know our father?" "Not directly," Luca said. "Victor likely gave the brothers enough information to find the property." "Then your uncle is still alive?" "Yes." "Where nobody knows." A guard entered. He handed Luca a phone. "We received a video." Luca played it on the large screen. Tyler appeared inside the Carter greenhouse. Broken windows and dead vines surrounded him. Daniel stood in the background. Beside them sat Emily's mother. Her hands were tied to a chair. Sophie screamed. Emily moved toward the screen. Tyler looked directly into the camera. "Bring Emily and Sophie before midnight." No guards. No tracking devices. "If Luca Moretti comes near the property, their mother dies." The video ended. Emily turned toward the hallway. Luca caught her arm. "You are not going. That is my mother. They need you alive. That gives us time." She pulled away. "You said that about the wedding." His face tightened. "I was wrong." "Then do not make the same mistake again." Luca stepped closer. "Going to that estate will not save her. It will give them every person they need to unlock the evidence." Sophie spoke from behind them. "I am going." Emily turned. "No." Sophie met her eyes. "Daniel used me. He lied to me. He put a gun against me. I will not stay here while he holds Mom." Luca looked between the sisters. "There may be another way into the estate through the tunnel." Emily remembered something. The boathouse door. Sophie looked at her. Father kept a key inside an old music box. The music box was still in Emily's apartment. Luca called Marco. Within minutes, a team left to retrieve it. Emily waited near the harbor windows. Fog pressed against the glass. Luca joined her after the others left. "You should hate me," he said. She looked at him. "Is that what you want? It would make this easier." "For who?" "For me." His honesty surprised her. Emily folded her arms against the cold. "I do not understand you." Most people do not try. Most people are afraid of you. Are you? Yes. Luca accepted the answer. But I also trust you. That troubled him more. You should not. You came when I called. I had other reasons. You still came. He looked out at the harbor. Emily studied his profile. You watched me for years. Yes. Did you ever plan to speak to me? No. Why? Because once I entered your life, your peace would end. She almost laughed. My peace ended anyway. Luca turned toward her. I should have seen Tyler earlier. You are not responsible for every bad choice I make. His eyes sharpened. You did not choose what he became. I chose to ignore the signs. Why? Emily looked down. Because he made me feel chosen. Luca remained silent. She continued before she lost the courage. People have always decided who I am by looking at me. The helpful sister, the dependable daughter, the chuppy girl standing behind the beautiful flowers. Tyler looked at me as though I was the only person in the room. He studied you because he needed to control you. I know that now. Luca stepped closer. Emily raised her eyes. His voice was low. He was not the only man who saw you. The harbor disappeared from her awareness. There was only Luca. The space between them. The restrained intensity in his face. How long? She whispered. His hand lifted. His fingers almost touched her cheek. Then he stopped. Longer than I should have. Footsteps entered the room. Luca lowered his hand. The moment broke. Marco carried a small wooden music box. Inside, it lay an iron key. The greenhouse. They reached the lakefront estate shortly before midnight. Rain returned as the Moretti vehicle stopped 1 mile from the property. Emily and Sophie wore black coats over simple clothes. Small communication devices had been hidden inside their collars. Luca gave Emily strict instructions. Do not move toward the greenhouse until Marco confirms that your mother is alive. What about you? I will enter through the tunnel. Tyler said he would kill her if he saw you. Then he will not see me. Emily looked at the men preparing equipment behind him. You planned the wedding as a trap. Luca met her eyes. Yes? Do not turn this into another trap where my family pays the price. I will not. Promise me? His expression changed. Promises had weight for him. Promise. Emily placed the iron key inside her pocket. She and Sophie walked toward the estate. The mansion stood dark behind the trees. Only the greenhouse glowed. Tyler waited near the entrance. Daniel stood beside him. Emily's mother remained inside, tied to a chair. Sophie moved faster. Daniel raised a weapon. Stop. She stopped. Emily lifted both hands. We came alone. Tyler searched them. He removed their phones, but did not find the communication devices. He smiled at Emily. I knew you would make the sensible decision. You never knew me. I knew enough. He looked at her body with open contempt. I knew how badly you wanted someone to choose you. All I had to do was make you believe I had. The words hurt. Emily did not look away. That was the woman Tyler remembered. The woman who accepted pain quietly. She no longer existed. You needed months to control me, she said. I needed one phone call to destroy your wedding. His smile disappeared. Daniel forced Sophie toward the center of the greenhouse. Their mother cried when she saw them. I am sorry. Emily touched her shoulder. This is not your fault. A new voice came from the shadows. No. It is mine. An older man stepped into the light. Victor Moretti resembled Luca around the eyes. But there was no restraint in his face. Only bitterness. Emily understood immediately. You betrayed my father. Victor smiled. Thomas Carter betrayed everyone when he decided truth mattered more than loyalty. He saved Luca. That was his final mistake. Emily wanted to strike him. Instead, she looked around the greenhouse. Beneath the dead vines stood the stone floor her father had built. "Where's the entrance?" Tyler asked. "I do not know." Victor pointed toward an old metal work table. "Your father always kept his tools there." Emily moved toward it. The iron key fit a lock beneath the lowest drawer. A section of the floor shifted. Cold air rose from below. Daniel pushed Sophie toward the opening. "Both sisters go first." Emily glanced toward the dark windows. No sign of Luca. She remembered his promise. She stepped onto the narrow stairs. The tunnel smelled of water and earth. Old lamps flickered along the walls as Tyler activated a power line. At the bottom stood a steel door with two locks. One lock bore the initials of Emily. The other bore the initials of Sophie. Thomas Carter had built the final protection around his daughters. Victor gave each sister a key taken from their mother's necklace. Emily had never noticed the tiny metal pieces hidden inside it. They opened the door together. The chamber beyond held filing cabinets, sealed boxes, and an old wooden desk. A leather ledger rested beneath glass. Victor stared at it with hungry disbelief. 20 years, he whispered. Tyler lifted the glass. He opened the ledger. Pages of names and payments filled the book. Luca could use this to destroy every family that opposed him. Victor said, "Or we can use it to destroy Luca." Emily looked toward the tunnel entrance. Still, no sign of him. Tyler noticed. "You expected your protector." Emily said nothing. He grabbed her wrist at the same place he had bruised during the wedding. The pain sharpened her fear. "Luca is not coming," Tyler whispered. "He used you once. He will use you again." Emily looked into his eyes. "Then why do you keep checking the door?" A sound moved through the tunnel. One of the lights went dark. Then another. Then another. Victor raised his weapon. Luca's voice came from the darkness. "Let her go." The violence beneath the glass. Luca stepped into the chamber alone. His suit was wet from the tunnel. A line of blood marked one side of his forehead, but his movements remained calm. Tyler pulled Emily against his body. He held a gun near her neck. Victor aimed at Luca. Daniel restrained Sophie near the steel door. Luca's eyes remained fixed on Emily. "Are you hurt?" Tyler laughed. "She is always hurt. That is what makes her easy to control." Luca looked at him. "You have mistaken kindness for weakness." Tyler pressed the weapon closer. "Move again and she dies." Luca stopped. Victor picked up the ledger. "After all these years, you finally came for it." "I came for her." Victor smiled. "You expect me to believe the great Luca Moretti abandoned an empire for a flower shop owner?" Luca's expression did not change. "Believe whatever helps you die calmly." Victor's anger flashed. "You sound like your father. You betrayed him too." He was weak. He trusted people. Luca looked toward Emily. "Trust does not make a person weak. Giving it to the wrong man does." Tyler tightened his arm around her. Emily struggled to breathe. Luca saw it. For the first time, his control cracked. Only slightly. His hand closed into a fist. "Let her breathe." Or what? Luca lowered his weapon and placed it on the ground. Everyone watched. Emily understood what it cost him. He never surrendered control. Yet, he stood unarmed, because Tyler's hand was around her throat. Victor opened the ledger. "This book can restore everything your father lost. The judges, the ports, the accounts. Every family will kneel." Luca did not look at it. Victor stepped toward a metal furnace built against the wall. "Choose. Luca, the ledger or the woman." Tyler laughed again. He already chose the ledger when he used the wedding. Emily looked at Luca. The betrayal she had tried to bury returned. He had known. He had allowed danger to gather around her family. Luca met her eyes. "I thought I could control every possibility," he said. His words were meant only for her. "I was wrong." Victor lifted the ledger. "Your father died for these pages." "No." Luca said, "Her father died because of men who believed power mattered more than people." Emily saw a small movement near the door. Sophie had loosened one hand from Daniel's grip. Luca saw it too. His gaze never shifted. "I spent years hunting everyone responsible," he continued. "I believed revenge would honor Thomas." Victor moved closer to the furnace. And now Luca looked at Emily. "Now I know revenge was only another way to remain loyal to the dead while failing the living." Tyler raised the gun. "Enough," Emily heard Sophie inhale. Then everything happened at once. Sophie struck Daniel with the metal key. Daniel released her. Emily drove her heel into Tyler's foot and pulled away. The weapon fired into the ceiling. Luca moved with terrifying speed. He crossed the chamber and struck Tyler before the second shot. Marco and the Moretti men entered through the tunnel. Victor grabbed Emily. He held a knife near her throat and dragged her toward the furnace. "Stop," he shouted. Luca, Froza. Victor looked at the ledger in one hand and Emily in the other. "You cannot save both." Luca's eyes moved to the furnace, then to Emily. He stepped toward Victor. "One more step and she dies." Luca stopped again. Victor smiled. "Tell your men to lower their weapons." Luca gave the order. The guards obeyed. Victor threw the ledger onto the floor between them. "Burn it." The room became silent. Emily understood the cruelty of the command. Victor wanted Luca to destroy the evidence that could restore Moretti power. He wanted Luca to erase the reason Thomas Carter had died. Luca picked up the ledger. He held it for one moment. Years of revenge rested in his hands. Names of enemies. Proof of betrayal. The foundation of an empire. Then Luca opened the furnace. He placed the ledger inside. Flames consumed the first pages. Victor's face changed. He had expected hesitation. Luca gave him none. Emily watched the leather cover blacken. The evidence disappeared into fire. Luca closed the furnace door. "Let her go." Victor stared at him. "You destroyed everything." "No." Luca looked at Emily. "I saved everything." Victor raised the knife. Emily dropped her weight and drove her elbow backward. His grip weakened. Luca reached them. He pulled Emily away as Marco disarmed Victor. Tyler crawled toward his fallen gun. Sophie kicked it beyond his reach. Daniel tried to escape through the steel door. But the Moretti guards blocked him. Luca held Emily against his chest. His heartbeat struck rapidly beneath her ear. For several seconds, he did not release her. The feared man who never lost control was shaking. Emily lifted her face. "Luca," his hands tightened around her. "I thought I was too late. You came. I nearly lost you." His voice broke on the final word. The sound affected her more than the violence around them. She touched the cut near his forehead. "You burned the ledger. I would burn every city I own before I watched him hurt you." There was no performance in his eyes. No manipulation. No strategy. Only fear. Fear of losing her. Emily rested her forehead against his. "You cannot protect me by controlling everything. I know. You cannot keep secrets because you think I am too fragile for the truth. I know. You cannot use my family again. Never." She searched his face. "And you cannot decide what I feel for you." That frightened him. "What do you feel?" Emily almost answered. Then a loud crack moved through the chamber. Fire had spread from the furnace to an old shelf. Smoke covered the ceiling. Luca lifted Emily into his arms. "I can walk. You can argue outside." He carried her toward the tunnel while his men guided Sophie and their mother behind them. Flames rose around the chamber. Tyler, Daniel, and Victor were taken through a second exit under guard. As Luca carried Emily into the rain, the greenhouse windows exploded behind them. Light filled the night. The building where Thomas Carter had hidden his secrets burned beneath the storm. Emily looked at Luca. His face was marked by rain and smoke. He had lost the evidence. He had lost years of planning. Yet his arms remained steady around her. For the first time, Emily understood the truth. Luca had not lost control because the ledger burned. He had lost control because she had nearly disappeared with it. The distance Emily did not return to the Moretti house. After the authorities secured the estate, she took her mother and Sophie to a hotel under private protection. Luca did not stop her. That surprised everyone. He placed guards outside the hotel and remained away. For 2 weeks, Emily heard nothing from him. Tyler and Daniel were charged through evidence recovered from their financial companies and the wedding security recordings. Victor disappeared while being transferred between Moretti locations. Marco believed someone inside the organization had helped him escape. The ledger was gone. But copies of several pages were later found inside a sealed cabinet beneath the greenhouse. There was enough evidence to expose corrupt officials, not enough to give Luca the power Victor feared. Emily returned to her flower shop. New glass replaced the broken windows. Customers filled the room with questions. Emily answered none of them. She worked, she repaired. She built new arrangements from damaged stems. Sophie moved into the apartment above the shop. She rarely mentioned Daniel. Some mornings, Emily found her sitting near the window with the wedding ring in her hand. One evening, Sophie placed it inside a box and closed the lid. "I loved him," she said. "I know. Was any of it real?" Emily considered the question. Maybe parts of it were real for him. But real feelings do not excuse cruel choices. Sophie looked toward her. "Is that what you believe about Luca?" Emily continued trimming a rose. "Luca is different." That was not an answer. Emily knew. She dreamed about him. She remembered his coat around her shoulders, his hand holding hers inside the armored vehicle. The moment near the harbor when he almost touched her face. The fear in his voice beneath the greenhouse. She also remembered the wedding, the calculated gathering, the surveillance, the secrets. Love without trust could become another prison. One rainy evening, Emily closed the shop and found a black vehicle across the street. It remained parked beneath a street lamp. Her heart reacted before her mind did. She crossed the road. The rear door opened. Luca sat inside. He wore a dark coat and no tie. Exhaustion shadowed his face. "You are watching me again," she said. "Yes." She waited. From across the street this time, "That is progress." A faint smile touched his mouth. Emily entered the vehicle and closed the door. Neither spoke for several seconds. Luca looked at her as though he had not seen her in years. "Victor escaped," he said. "I heard. He may come after you." "Then tell me the truth." "About what everything?" Luca reached into his coat and handed her a thin file. Inside were reports about her father, Victor, the Grant brothers, and Moretti operations connected to the estate. No hidden pages. No missing names. Emily looked through them. "This could damage you." "Yes." "Why give it to me?" "Because you asked for the truth. Even when it costs you, especially then." She closed the file. "Why did you stay away?" "You left. That has never stopped you before." His eyes darkened. "I wanted to come every day." "Why did you not?" "Because protection without permission becomes control." Emily felt the answer settle inside her. Luca looked toward the shop. "I had men nearby." "I knew." "You saw them. Marco is terrible at pretending to read the same newspaper for 6 hours." Luca almost smiled again. Emily studied him. "What do you want from me?" The question stripped the distance from his face. He answered slowly. "Everything I have no right to ask for." She waited. "Your trust. Your anger. Your voice in my house. Your flowers in rooms that have been empty too long." His gaze remained on hers. "I want to know where you are when the city becomes dangerous. I want you to call me before fear becomes silence." I want every man who looks at you to understand that you are protected. Emily raised an eyebrow. That sounds controlling. I am trying to improve. Try harder. I want you to choose me, he said. The words became quiet. Not because you are afraid. Not because you owe me. Not because your father made me promise. Emily, breathing, slowed. And if I do not, I will keep you safe from a distance. For how long? For the rest of my life. She looked away before he could see how deeply that answer affected her. Rain moved down the window. Luca spoke again. There is another truth. Emily turned back. The first year I watched your shop, I told myself it was duty. The second year, I knew what time you arrived. I knew which days you wore the blue coat. I knew you opened the window when it rained because you liked the smell. He paused. By the third year, I stopped pretending it was about your father. Emily's heart beat faster. Why did you never come inside? Because men like me do not enter a peaceful life without changing it. You changed mine anyway. Yes. Do you regret it? Luca looked at her. I regret every moment that hurt you. That was not what I asked. No. He did not hesitate. I do not regret knowing you. Emily reached for the door. Luca's expression closed, as though he had expected rejection. She stepped outside. Then she leaned down and looked through the open doorway. Are you coming? Where the flower shop? He stared at her. Why? Because the roses need water. And I need help carrying the new display. Luca left the vehicle. It was not forgiveness. It was not a promise. It was a beginning. The man outside the window, Luca began visiting the flower shop after closing. At first, he stayed for 10 minutes. Then 20. Eventually, he remained until midnight. He learned how to remove thorns without damaging a stem. He learned that Emily hated lilies because their scent gave her headaches. He learned that Sophie preferred pink roses even though she told everyone she liked white. Emily learned that Luca drank coffee without sugar. She learned that he read old history books when he could not sleep. She learned that the scar near his wrist came from an attack when he was 17. He did not speak about violence unless she asked. Even then, he answered without pride. One night, Emily found him sitting on the floor behind the counter. A small girl from the neighborhood had entered the shop with her grandmother and asked Luca to help make a bouquet. He held yellow flowers while the child instructed him with complete seriousness. Emily stood near the door, trying not to laugh. Luca looked up. Do not. I did not say anything. You were about to. The child handed him a ribbon. The feared mafia boss tied a crooked bow around the bouquet. Emily laughed anyway. His expression warned her. His eyes did not. Later, after the shop closed, they walked through the rain toward her apartment. Luca carried an umbrella. Emily carried the yellow bouquet because the child had left it for her. A vehicle moved slowly behind them. Moretti guards. Emily glanced at it. Do they follow you everywhere? Usually. That sounds lonely. It is useful. That was not what I said. Luca remained silent. At the entrance to her building, Emily turned toward him. Rain sounded against the umbrella. You can come upstairs. His eyes held hers. Are you certain? For coffee? His expression became almost offended. I understand what coffee means. I am making the meaning clear. They entered the apartment. The room was small and warm. Plants covered the windows. Books rested in uneven stacks near the couch. Luca stood near the doorway. Emily placed the bouquet in water. You can sit? I am sitting. You are standing. I am considering it. She smiled. He removed his coat and sat on the couch. Emily brought 2 cups of coffee. They talked until the city became quiet. No danger entered the room. No guards interrupted. For several hours, Luca was simply a man sitting beside a woman he could not stop watching. Emily rested her head against the couch. Why do you look at me like that? Like what? As though I might disappear? His answer came softly. Because people do. Emily moved closer. Luca became still. She placed her hand over his. I am here. His fingers turned beneath hers. He lifted her hand and pressed it against his chest. His heart beat hard. Emily had never imagined that a man like Luca could be afraid. She understood now that fear did not always look like panic. Sometimes it looked like control. Sometimes it looked like 10 black vehicles surrounding a wedding. Sometimes it looked like a man sitting outside a flower shop in the rain because he did not know whether he was allowed to enter. Luca touched her cheek. This time, he did not stop. His hand was warm. His thumb moved gently beneath her eye. Emily leaned closer. Their foreheads touched. The moment carried no urgency, only years of restraint. When Luca kissed her, it was slow and careful. He held her as though power meant nothing without permission. Emily placed one hand against his jaw. The kiss deepened for one breath. Then Luca pulled back. His control had returned, but his eyes remained unguarded. Tell me to leave, he whispered. Emily looked at him. Stay. He stayed. The final trap, Victor Moretti returned 3 weeks later. He did not attack Emily. He attacked Luca Empire. Warehouses burned along the harbor. Moretti accounts were frozen. Several trusted men disappeared. Victor sent messages to rival families claiming Luca had become weak. The reason was always the same. Emily Carter. Luca stopped visiting the shop. He called every evening, but his voice became distant. Emily understood what he was doing. He believed distance would protect her. She refused to accept it. One night, she went to the Moretti mansion. The guards let her enter. Luca stood inside the study with Marco and several advisors. Maps covered the walls. Documents filled the desk. Everyone became silent when Emily entered. Luca dismissed the room. When they were alone, his control broke into anger. You should not be here. You stop coming. Victor is targeting every person connected to me. I am already connected to you. Not publicly. 10 vehicles surrounded my sister's wedding. That was not subtle. Luca walked toward her. This is different, because people think you love me. His jaw tightened. Do you? The question stopped him. Emily crossed the room. You do not get to disappear every time caring about me becomes inconvenient. Inconvenient, his voice lowered. Victor killed 2 men yesterday. He threatened Matteo family. He has people watching the shop. Then we face him together. No. Emily stared at him. You promised not to control me. I am keeping you alive. You are making decisions for me because I cannot think clearly when you are in danger. The truth filled the room. Luca turned away. Emily saw the loneliness in his shoulders. She approached slowly. That is not love. He faced her again. I never called it love. Then what is it? His eyes held hers. Obsession. The word should have frightened her. Instead, it sounded like a confession from a man who did not believe he deserved gentler language. Emily touched his hand. Love does not become safer because you give it a darker name. Luca looked at their hands. Victor contacted Sophie this morning, he said. Emily became still. What he sent her a photograph of Daniel. Daniel had escaped custody during a transport arranged by corrupt officers. Victor claimed Daniel wanted to surrender and reveal the location of hidden financial records. Where is Sophie? At the shop. Emily called her. No answer. Luca was already moving. They reached the shop within 15 minutes. The front door stood open. Yellow flowers covered the floor. Sophie was gone. A message had been painted across the back wall. Vale Church. Midnight. Luca looked at Emily. You are staying here? No. Emily. No. He stepped closer. Victor wants me to bring you. Then bring me. I will not use you as bait again. This time, it is my choice. The distinction struck him. Emily continued. You taught me that people like Victor survive by making everyone afraid. I am done being afraid. Luca touched her face. I am not. I know. His forehead rested against hers. That is why you need me beside you. The church stood abandoned near the lake. Storm clouds covered the sky. Victor waited inside with Daniel and several armed men. Sophie knelt near the altar. Her hands were tied. Daniel stood behind her. The old church glowed with candlelight. Rain entered through broken windows. Luca walked through the doors wearing a black suit. Emily walked beside him. Moretti guards remained outside. Victor smiled from the altar. The great Luca Moretti brought his weakness to church. Emily felt Luca's hand close around hers. No, he said. I brought the reason you will lose. Daniel pulled Sophie to her feet. He looked thinner than he had at the wedding. Desperation replaced his charm. Sophie, he said, tell them I never wanted this. She looked at him. You held a gun against me. I was trying to escape. You used me for the estate. I cared about you. Then you should have chosen me when it cost you something. Daniel's face twisted. Victor gave me no choice. Sophie's voice became steady. There is always a choice. Victor raised his weapon. Enough. He looked toward Luca. You destroyed the ledger, but I have names, accounts, judges. I can still take everything. Then take it. Victor frowned. Luca continued walking. Take the ports, the companies, the houses. None of it will make you what my father was. Your father was weak. My father was loved. The answer enraged Victor. He aimed at Emily. Luca moved in front of her. A shot echoed through the church. Luca body jerked. Emily screamed. He remained standing. Blood spread across his shoulder. The Moretti guards entered through side doors. Gunfire struck stone and wood. Luca pulled Emily behind a pillar. Stay here. He moved toward the altar. Emily saw Daniel drag Sophie toward a rear passage. She followed. The passage led into a small chapel. Daniel locked the door behind them. Sophie struggled against him. Emily picked up a broken piece of wood from the floor. Let her go. Daniel laughed. You always wanted to be the brave sister. No. Emily stepped closer. I only wanted to be the sister who brought her home. Daniel pulled a knife. Emily did not retreat. Sophie struck him from behind. Emily hit his wrist with the wood. The knife fell. The sisters moved together, pushing Daniel away. The door opened. Marco entered with 2 guards. He secured Daniel. Emily hugged Sophie. Then another shot sounded inside the main church. Emily ran back. Victor stood near the altar. Luca was on one knee. His injured arm hung at his side. Victor aimed at his chest. Emily walked into the open. Victor saw her. Luca did too. His face changed with terror. Emily, get down. She continued walking. Victor turned the weapon toward her. You see, Luca, she makes you weak. Emily looked at Victor. No. Her voice carried through the church. You are wrong about weakness. Victor smiled. You know nothing about power. I know Tyler tried to control me because he was afraid I would leave. Daniel lied because he was afraid Sophie would never choose the real man beneath the charm. You betrayed your brother because you were afraid he would always be greater than you. Victor, expression hardened. Emily stopped beside Luca. You have spent your entire life calling fear power. Victor fired. Luca pulled Emily down. Marco shot the weapon from Victor's hand. The Moretti guards surrounded him. Victor fell near the altar. Luca turned toward Emily. His injured hand touched her face. Are you hurt? No. He looked as though he did not believe her. Emily pressed her hands against his shoulder wound. You were shot. It missed anything important. You are important. The words silenced him. Rain fell through the broken roof. Candles burned around them. Luca rested his forehead against hers. I love you. Emily. There was no darkness in the confession. No strategy. No demand. Only truth. Emily smiled through tears. I know. That is not an answer. She touched his jaw. I love you too. For the first time, Luca Moretti smiled without restraint. The garden. 1 year later, the greenhouse reopened. Emily and Sophie rebuilt it on the lakefront property. They replaced the hidden chamber with a garden room filled with sunlight. No documents remained beneath the floor. No weapons. No secrets. Only flowers. Sophie managed weddings and private events on the property. She refused to wear white roses. But she grew hundreds of pink ones. Their mother lived in a cottage near the lake. Every evening, she placed flowers beside a photograph of Thomas Carter. Luca remained feared throughout Chicago. He did not become gentle to the world. He did not abandon his power. He changed how he used it. Several illegal operations connected to Victor were dismantled. Luca replaced them with legitimate security and shipping companies. People still lowered their voices when he entered a room. Emily did not. She argued with him about guards. She argued with him about schedules. She once forced him to leave an important meeting because he had forgotten their anniversary dinner. Nobody in the Moretti organization had ever seen Luca obey anyone so quickly. On the anniversary of the wedding that never happened, Emily hosted a celebration at the greenhouse. Sophie stood beneath strings of warm lights and raised a glass to new beginnings. Music moved through the garden. Guests laughed near the lake. Luca remained at the edge of the crowd. He wore a black suit. His gaze followed Emily as she moved between tables. She wore a dark green dress that embraced every curve she had once tried to hide. She no longer stepped behind the flowers when someone looked at her. She had learned that beauty was not permission given by other people. It was the freedom to exist without apology. Emily crossed the garden. Why are you standing alone? I am not alone. Luca looked at her. You are here. She smiled. That answer might save you. He held out one hand. Dance with me. You do not dance. I have been informed that people can learn. Emily placed her hand in his. They moved beneath the greenhouse lights. Luca remained serious for the first few steps. Emily laughed. Relax? I am relaxed. You look like you are negotiating a hostage release. This is more difficult. She placed both arms around his neck. He rested his hands carefully at her waist. Rain began tapping against the glass roof. Emily looked upward. The sound carried her back to the wedding. The locked room. The card inside her wallet. The terrified whisper. Can you come get me? Luca watched her face. What are you thinking? About the day I called you? His hands tightened slightly. I still hear your voice. I was frightened. I know. I thought you might not answer. Luca stopped moving. The music continued around them. He looked at her with the same intensity he had carried into the wedding hall. Emily. Yes, there is no place in this world where you could call and I would not come. Her eyes filled with tears. That is very dramatic. It is also true. She touched the scar near his jaw. You once told me that entering my life would destroy my peace. I was right. Emily raised an eyebrow. Luca almost smiled. Then she leaned closer. You were wrong. My life was quiet before you. Quiet is not always peace. He studied her. What is peace? Emily looked around the greenhouse. At her sister laughing beneath the lights. At her mother standing near the flowers Thomas once planted. At Marco pretending not to watch the exits. At the man holding her as though every empire in the world could burn and he would still consider himself fortunate. This, she said. Luca kissed her beneath the rain-covered glass. There were no hidden cameras, no enemies waiting outside, no bargains, no locked doors. Only a woman who had finally chosen herself, and a man who had spent his life believing love was another name for weakness. Emily taught him otherwise. Love was not surrender. It was not control. It was the courage to place power in another person's hands and trust them not to use it as a weapon. Years earlier, Thomas Carter had died protecting Luca Moretti. Luca had believed the debt could only be repaid through duty. He had been wrong. Thomas had not saved Luca so that Luca could spend his life worshiping revenge. He had saved him so that one day Luca might stand inside a garden, beneath warm lights and falling rain, holding a woman who was no longer afraid to be seen. Emily rested her head against his chest. Luca kissed her hair. Outside, black vehicles waited along the road. Inside, flowers opened beneath the light. The Mafia Boss had once surrounded a wedding to rescue the frightened woman who called him. In the end, she became the one person powerful enough to rescue him.